Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include the polarizing reviews of Atomic Heart, last Epoch revolutionizing trade in the aRPG genre, the latest Diablo 4 updates, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. But before we move on, a quick word from this video's sponsor. I built my website Rhykker.com using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily and with zero education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Watch how easily I update the Diablo 3 section of my website to include all my video coverage of the latest season updates. Squarespace is flexible for any kind of website, whether for your business or your hobby, with tons of templates that you can easily customize to your needs, no knowledge of coding required. You can even connect your social media profiles to automatically push website content to your socials, set up members-only areas with exclusive content, and sell products. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. It's the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. Stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything. Your products, content you create, or even your time. And Squarespace is offering my viewers 10% off your first purchase with them. Just go to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to sign up and start building your online presence. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker to get started today. In some Hogwarts Legacy news, in its second week, the game has held on to its position as #1 bestseller for box games in the UK, according to GfK retail data. And publisher Warner has been very happy with the sales figures. Speaking of variety, Warner Bros. Games president David Haddad said they were very pleased with initial launch sales figures, and that player engagement has been spectacular. And the devs have confirmed to IGN that they have no current plans for DLC for the game. Now, don't worry, this doesn't mean they'll never make DLC, it's not that it's not on the table. I know a lot of players are clamoring for it, but it does mean that you can rest assured that there was no content that was cut from the game so that they can sell it to you as DLC, since then plans would have already been made. If DLC was going to be part of the monetization plan, then it would have been pre-planned, but maybe seeing the game's success might encourage them to release some additional content. Meanwhile, Elden Ring is celebrating 20 million units sold worldwide since its release 1 year ago. Can you believe it's already been 1 year of Elden Ring? That's an impressive feat for the game, considering the entire Dark Souls series sold 27 million units combined. In other news, Atomic Heart released, that wonderfully weirdo alternate reality Soviet-era FPS game, and reviews for it are kind of all over the place. Some are praising the game, others criticizing it. The game seems very polarizing. I've seen the writing and dialogue criticized, I've seen the imaginativeness of the world praised. On OpenCritic, it has an average critic score of 74, with only 53% of critics recommending it. But then on Steam, it has very positive reviews. So obviously the best outcome for a game is to get universal praise. But second best, I'd say polarizing. People either loving or hating your game. Because the worst thing that you can be is just mediocre to everyone. Well, I guess technically the worst thing you can be is just bad. I know I've seen a lot of horror movies that I loved, but I know most people would find them boring, and they'd say it's a bad movie. But it's really just that not everything is made for everyone. If you've played Atomic Heart, sound off in the comments with your thoughts. Next up, we got a funny story. And by funny, I guess I mean sad or infuriating. You know Angry Birds? Everyone knows Angry Birds. That mobile game that's been around forever. They kept releasing new versions of it, and then, what, a couple years ago, or I don't know, within the last year, they released the classic version of the game. That old version from before mobile games were properly monetized. Well, now the publisher is delisting the 99-cent game from the Google Play Store and renaming the one in the App Store to Red's First Flight, probably as a intermediary step towards delisting it there too. Now, if you already have the game purchased and downloaded, you'll still be able to play it, but new players will not be able to get the game anymore. Now, why? Why would they be doing this? Is it because the game is too expensive to maintain? Well, no, there's no multiplayer servers to be running here, and you don't have to keep putting out content updates to this game. You don't have a team running it. There's no payroll here. So what's the reason? Well, according to publisher Rovio, quote, due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio. In other words, because this game, which is devoid of microtransactions or ads, It's just a one-time 99-cent purchase because this game is so good. No one is spending money on our other games, the ones that we've aggressively monetized. So maybe if we make this one unavailable, people will stop playing that, then they'll have to spend money on our other crap, right? I mean, they weren't even giving away the game for free. They were still selling it for 99 cents. The fact that people would rather pay 99 cents on the classic Angry Birds rather than play and spend money on their newer stuff certainly says something. You know, it's a rare time when voting with your wallet was actually working. Let the market forces decide what's going to be successful. And market forces were saying, hey, we prefer this game that you buy one time with no MTX. And now we're deciding, well, nope, people can't choose the product with no MTX. If there's no product with no MTX. Moving on to some last Epoch news. Good devs. The devs have revealed their new plans on how to introduce trading into the game in a way that should make everyone happy. To get you caught up, when they first announced Last Epoch years ago, they announced it as a game that would have open trading, a bazaar as a sort of auction house to trade. A lot of players were excited about having that kind of game with a living economy. Then more recently they changed their stance. They felt that it would compromise the game experience too much to have open trade, that drop rates would have to be kept so low that the solo self-found experience or the no trade experience would suffer too much, and they decided to cater the drops and the game balance around that no trade experience. And what they introduced instead is basically the same trade system or lack thereof that Diablo 3 has, where if you are playing with someone and an item drops, you can give your buddy that item, but if you're not in a game together when that item drops, you cannot give that item to anybody. So there was some backlash. People who were expecting an open trade game were disappointed, and the devs listened to the community. They went back to the drawing board. They came up with some ideas, and the solutions that they have are really interesting and ingenious. I've never seen trade handled this way, and it's actual innovation. They're gamifying trading. So what happens is that there will be two factions that you can find in game. Maybe there'll be even more in the future, but for now, you basically have your trade faction called the Merchants Guild and your non-trade faction called the Circle of Fortune. Now you can only be part of one of these factions at a time, and depending on which faction you're in, that'll affect whether you have a more open trade experience or more of a solo self-found experience. In the non-trade faction, you'll get more and better drops. In the trade faction, you'll be able to buy or sell any kind of item and use the bazaar. You also gain faction favor within your given faction, level up, climb the ranks within the faction, unlocking more access and better perks. Now again, you can only be part of one faction at a time, but you can change your faction at will, though doing so will reset your rank, so you're not going to want to do this all the time. Also, if an item drops while you are in one faction, you can only equip that item as long as you are in that faction. So no cheating the system, swapping back and forth. So in summary, they found a way to balance the game to make both groups of players happy. The ones who want trade and the ones who don't want to play the trade game, who don't want a game where the most effective and efficient thing to do is to trade items with other players. Because the dilemma was always, if you balance the game around trade, then you need to keep drop rates low enough to prevent items from flooding the market and giving super easy access to gear for everyone. But then the non-trade players suffer because they're barely getting any drops. Now you just pick your faction, and you're still able to play with players in the other faction. That's the beauty of it. It's not like an entire non-trade server that segregates the player base. So if you like trade and your buddy doesn't, you can still play the game together. It's genius. And the best part is that you're also not locked into the choice. If you have regrets, or you just want to see what life is like as a trader or as a non-trader, you don't have to make a new character. For those who want to trade, you'll be able to just trade directly with another player, or you can choose to use the bazaar, which is a sort of auction house where you can search and use filters and doesn't require you to interact with another human being. Someone lists their item, you find it, you buy it, it is asynchronous, the item is instantly yours, there's no need for you to message 10 different people, wait for their replies for minutes, hope that they still have the item for sale, wait for them to finish their dungeon run. In the meantime, you started your dungeon run, and then you gotta wait for... And for non-trade players, more improvements are being made to item gifting. Currently for all players, if an item drops in a multiplayer game, you can freely gift that item to other players in your game. But if your buddy is not in your game when you got that sweet drop, well, you can't give it to anyone now. But with their new system, they're introducing a new kind of item called resonance. resonance will drop if you're playing with someone for a long time. That resonance is tied to that player, and it could then be applied to an item, allowing you to gift the item to that player. So this allows you to still be able to gift items to your friends even if you get those items while not playing with them. And this completely avoids the issue of allowing you to trade with anyone on your friends list, because what would happen in other games is the black market, real money trade, would have people just, okay, I add you to my friends list for a minute, we make the exchange, and then I remove you from my friends list. Again, it's genius. I think this is the most innovation we've seen in a trade system in an aRPG in at least a decade. But what do you folks think about the new trade system? Is this a win? Sound off in the comments. Oh, we'll also mention that Last Epoch currently has a multiplayer open beta ongoing, free for anyone to participate. You don't have to own the game, so get your friends to join you and try it out. They just gotta find the game on Steam, click request access for the beta, and bam, they'll get instant access. And do it fast because multiplayer beta ends Monday morning. Then in some Diablo 3 news, Season 28 launched last night. I've released a slew of videos over the past couple of weeks, build guides, a tier list video on the top 10 best builds of the season, as well as a comprehensive guide on the new season mechanic, the Altar of Rites. That video includes mini guides on farming the Staff of Herding, the Ubers, everything that you need to complete your altar. And if you're looking to see if I have a video on a particular build, you can just go to Rhykker.com to see all my build videos. And of course, you can go to maxroll.gg for all the written guides you can possibly need for Diablo 3. Now, we did have one surprise with the patch release, the reworked Natalia set. On the test server, the reworked Natalia set resulted in another spin to win build. After the test server, the devs changed the build, and it's only this week that we got to test it out. Now, initial findings are that the build isn't as strong as predicted because of some undocumented nerfs to the Spike Trap Lightning Rune. So it seems this build will top out at A tier this season, rather than the S tier that we were hoping, putting it at roughly the same power level as the Marauder build for pushing greater rifts. It may squeeze ahead as the max roll boys figure out the best optimizations to make though. And just like Marauder, this is not a farming build, it's really just for pushing greater rifts. The current version of the build is not beginner friendly. It's a very stationary build. You lay caltrops at your feet, then you spam 10 spike traps on the same spot, and then you detonate them with evasive fire, and then you start that loop over again, all while you are face tanking enemies that are right in front of you. Then in some Diablo 4 news, in case you missed my YouTube short update last Saturday, we got the beta dates for Diablo 4 at IGN FanFest. The early beta will run from March 17th to March 19th. You can get into that if you pre-purchase Diablo 4. Otherwise, the beta open to everyone will be from March 24th to March 26th. Progress from the first beta carries over to the second beta, but the progress from the betas will not carry over to full release. It wouldn't make sense to do so. They're still going to be making balance changes. In this beta, we'll have access to the entire Fractured Peaks area, which is Act 1 of the game. You'll be able to go up to level 25, so this seems to be identical to the press beta that I played back in December. You can check out my video covering my beta impressions right here. Then, Diablo franchise director Rod Ferguson also teased on Twitter that if you reach level 20 in the beta, there is some reward you'll get in the final launch version of the game. If I had to guess, it would be some exclusive cosmetic. Reaching level 20 should be very feasible if you can put in the hours, at least based on my own play experience. We also got the drop of the game's intro cutscene, which is rendered in-engine and uses your personalized character, and it continues to nail that occult horror vibe. We also got this week a new video about the world of Sanctuary, in which members of the D4 team discuss Diablo 4's setting. It's a recap of a lot of info that we already had, but there's some new tidbits sprinkled in there, all while showcasing environments, monsters, and dungeons. I'll have a link in the description for you to watch the video yourself. But one thing that struck me was a mention of an Endless Gates dungeon, a dungeon with portals to other dungeons, and every time you go in, it's designed to change. This is new information, I'm pretty sure, and it points to the kind of repeatable, randomized content you may run into in Endgame. We also see for a brief few seconds what appears to be a new world boss. Oh, and we got confirmation that in Diablo 4 you can indeed pet the dog. The devs also shared that they built a quest where we'll get to go to all the places that we see in the By 3 They Come reveal cinematic. So, for instance, that actual room where Lilith was summoned and all that. It should be pretty cool to get to experience those locations as playable environments in-game. Then lastly, we learned that the devs will have their next update live stream on February 28th, during which, among other things, we'll find out the system requirements for the beta. So that's going to be on Tuesday. Stay tuned for my coverage of that, because that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discussed Diablo 2's new season-breaking build. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you saw on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.